That's what all this is leading to, and it's all fitting together. And so they don't have all of Richard to give to us. That's what I'm saying. And so if they want leads of pieces, this is this needs to be investigated, and who's keeping those secrets of where Richard's remains are, uh, whatever they haven't found yet. And so this very brutal crime, I call it the Jack the Ripper crime. How can that happen? Why would that happen? Why would that happen? And when you look at the Hart family, would it be because you didn't want your lieutenant son's incestual relationship released? Did you not want the fact that multiple people in your family were raping a 7-year-old? And would that give motive to do something this vicious? How many people are connected in with it? There must be something else going on. Who is allowing the pornography? See, the pornography is another thing. Who's allowing the pornography to be filmed and marketed, produced and marketed, and then broadcast looking the other way? And is there money in that? Is there money in the child sex trafficking? Is there money in the narcotics trafficking? Is there money in then the security? Right? So then you have the weapons smuggling. And we know all of these things are happening, and we know that these were all problems on Fort Bliss during the time. And so tonight I wanted to talk about another problem. And the other problem is that the child care situation was and still is. I mean, the mayor just declared emergency because of what is happening there at the border. And it involves a lot of children. And you need child care workers. And, my family's been in the child care. I mean, my son is in the child care business. So we absolutely know that every child care worker needs to be carefully vetted. Carefully vetted. And you have to do a background check. You have to have fingerprints. It's very clear because our children are so important. I was writing a few things down and I put it up on and looking some things up, and I was putting it up on Telegram. And so if you're a parent that had child care health and safety issues from 2019 to 2020 in El Paso, Texas, that may be related to our son's case, please call 941-677-0060, because there were and are issues with the hiring process for staff working at the Emergency Intake Center. That was confirmed by the Inspector General. The Office of Inspector General already confirmed that, and that was in July of 2021. That report was published. So that went to, of course, 2020 and 2019, when this intake center was just needing childcare workers so desperately. And the staff were hired without completing required background checks. And we have a Mexican news media that I was told that also had on there that it could be up to 85% that were not vetted because they were just so desperate. They just didn't care. They just hired any workers. And this raises huge concerns for the well-being of our children. And, why do they get away with this? You see, why? Because they are in a uniform. They are in a government chair, right? They are in places of authority. And that uniform gives massive privilege, because you get the respect. You get a military uniform on and you automatically get the respect of the American people. It's been all over here where I live. Thank you for your service. You get discounts. If you sit in uniform, I remember the CAO that came up and we went to a Culver's and sat there and discussed Richard's case. So many people came up to him and said, "Sir, I just want to thank you for your service. Thank you for your service." Yeah. There's a story behind that too. And just, he's no longer with us, y'all. RIP, our casualty assistance officer that they gave us. They gave us a casualty assistance officer. And it's interesting that that they did that. Because I think they legally had to do that because that was an admission of what we know now. They gave us a casualty assistance officer since the beginning. So, we trust these uniforms to do the right thing, and they're not. And they need to be held accountable because just because you wear the uniform doesn't give you permission to dishonor it. And I say this all the time about this colonel that's in this doggy cult. And I'm very outspoken about it. And the other sick team of political pundits, or maybe they're have a lot to lose in this case. They get upset when I say it. But we have a colonel that was so bold that in his uniform, he dressed up in his doggy cult in uniform and then exposed himself. He exposed his erection in a picture with the uniform on, with his doggy cult head mask on, at a gymnasium, at a military gymnasium on our installation. And he was so bold. A colonel. You understand? He was given a safe passage to do that. That he just felt so safe that nothing was at risk. He could do it. Because there's no consequences anymore. There are no consequences because the investigation is ongoing. The investigation is ongoing. 1,000 days later, the investigation is ongoing. And we have 1,000 days of proof that this investigation could have ended much, much quicker and sooner. I mean, it could right now. And thank you for Quantico getting in touch with us to move forward. But without all the corruption and all the irregularities and the misinformation, we could have absolutely got to the bottom of this murder, and we could have already prosecuted the murderers and got them off the street. But right now, with the likes of the corrupt Vanity Fair Veronica Escobar, she's so vain, she can't, she can't look away from her mirror to look at the soldiers and their suffering at Fort Bliss. She can't look, even for a minute, from that mirror and her self-aggrandizement, her own aspirations, because she's forgotten what's her duty to do, that she has abandoned her own district, her own community, her own city of El Paso. And in their desperate time, they just declared a state of emergency. And so she's allowing even more trouble to come, because she's not getting these Jack the Rippers off the street that she could have done 2 years ago or more. She could have done that 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago, when we met with her, and she could have done an inquiry. She could have had a hearing. She could have issued subpoenas. She could have saved the day, and we would have Richard's remains. And all of the evil Jack the Rippers and those that want to collude and keep the criminal activity going under the facade of a uniform, under the facade of the brand. They are endangering the military brand, which internationally endangers it. And, she's allowing that all to happen. She's allowing our 44 four-star generals to allow it to happen, because she has oversight. She could nip it in the bud so quick. But who's pulling her strings there in El Paso? Who's ruling El Paso? Because whoever is truly ruling El Paso has no love for El Pasoans. Because whoever they are, they're allowing Jack the Rippers to walk freely on the streets. And that hour, you have to remember that the child care industry is not vetted properly in El Paso. They put not only our soldiers in danger, but our children. And not only our children, but any child and minor coming over that border. I mean, how inhumane and cold-blooded are they? And so not only if these reports, CID and FBI, and they're not arresting Leilani Hart, because if they were false, they would be arresting her, and they're not doing that. So that means there must be some truth to what she stated, not me, but what she stated in her own notarized. The notary, I talked to him. He had it in his hands. He had it in his fingers. He notarized her signature. He acknowledged her signature on that document. This is her words. Her words. That multiple members of her family were raping a 7-year-old. That First Lieutenant Dallas Hart, as a United States Army officer in in uniform was engaged in an incestuous relationship with his brother. And that there was a child care. This was that 7-year-old there for child care? Because there was also another child 3 years old. And that she had that license, and that the license expired and no one cared, and she kept having the child care. Now, that is a separate issue from the CID, but the CID report is that this child was being raped. 7-year-old being raped. Where are the arrests? And that if it is a child care, if it is a registered military, because you have to see the military contracted home daycare providers, they contracted them out. And they're supposed to have even more of a rigorous background check. And if this is all related, and Richard is seeing, this pornography or this rape going on, or this incest going on, and he is making CID complaint, and he's making Child Protective Service complaint, and we don't know because we've had a FOIA and they won't answer us. But this is, this is what's coming out. And it's absolutely motive, because we know that if it's pornography, it's child sex trafficking. There's drugs involved. There's weapons involved. There's, who knows, some racketeering, some, who knows, higher ranks that are getting paid off, that are making money off of this, allowing this to happen. And how many children have been raped. And we know that there was a huge problem in childcare. And we're on this mission to figure out what Richard reported, that someone would want to brutally murder him, tie his hands up in tie bands, and brutally cut him apart, rip him in two, cut, Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper. And then to divide his body into all these different places across West Texas and into Mexico. What kind of hate, what would Richard have to do? And you have to remember these vile and vulgar messages from the likes of these people that have so much to lose. They've given us information on that they judged Richard. Because I would say, when I got the messages, I would say, look, just find Richard, and then you can judge him then. If he wronged you, you can judge him then. But let's find him first. And they said, no, we already judged him. We already judged him. So did they have some kind of counsel? Did they have some kind of court hearing in their cult? Is this satanic? Is this some kind of cult that we're unaware of? That, they already judged him, and they judged him guilty. I don't know if it's a he, I don't know if it's a she, but they judged him as guilty. And was he given the death penalty? And that's why we need to find out who murdered him. And if this is the case, because then we need to put that lethal injection that's available in Texas right there on the table. Because from all of the screenshots that I have received, from all of the vile, vulgar phone messages that I have received, 1,000 days, 1,000 days, we're at 1,014 days, 1,000 days of proof that they were not concerned about finding Richard. They had already judged him, and they judged him guilty. And I want to know, because I know that for a fact, because they told me. And did they have such a motive to cut him asunder? Are these the same people that cut him apart in some kind of ritual or whatever they wanted to give him the death penalty? And where are some of his body parts, right? Where are give us Richard's remains? I mean, this is that evil. We're talking about every wrong offense. And the sad thing about this is that if we don't have any consequences, which it doesn't look like we're having any consequences. Look, we have Hunter Biden's laptop, right? And we had 50 FBI or 50 intelligence officers that were like, oh, no, no, no. And now they're, if they are going to mislead people in that, to control an election, if they're going to mislead people in all areas of life, and I was told if they lie to us about the moon, they're going to lie to us about Richard. They're going to lie to you about your son. And you see the pattern everywhere of this is an ongoing investigation. Oh, we need to have a hearing. Oh, we need to have a hearing. This is an ongoing investigation. There's never any conclusions. There's never any consequences. Because when you have that, it unravels. It opens up that box and we clearly see how evil this is. And I can tell you, and I put up Richard's letter today because my mom came home from the hospital today. Yay! Thank you for all the well wishes on that. But you know how many soldiers write a letter to their grandparents? Omi and Opie, dear Omi and Opie. Now, this is a mistake here. This is June, 17th of June, because he graduated at the beginning of July, but he was just trying to tell them that and on the back of this letter, it's July 6th, I believe, 5th and 6th. My parents were going there at the beginning of July 2018 for his graduation, right? And he wrote this letter to them from basic training. And he was so excited, y'all. Take a minute to read this if you haven't already. And if you can do a handwriting analysis on it, you'll see what a beautiful person Richard is. And he's a yellow Interpol. He's a yellow Interpol. And he loved that uniform. And he honored that uniform. And his actions honored that uniform. And he made a CPS complaint, and he made a CID complaint of those that were dishonoring their uniform, dishonoring their rank, their stars, their stripes, They were dishonoring them. And it's very clear that they were and that they did, because the retaliation from Major General Clem Coward very clearly is a dishonoring of his stars, two-star general. The letter from David Park to me, which did not include my husband. I never mind not being included in these letters, but I really do mind when my husband is not shown the respect that he has earned and is not shown. And Captain Park, David Park, he absolutely was dishonored. He's a West Pointer. He dishonored West Point. He dishonored his uniform. He dishonored his unit. And of course, Clem Coward too, by that letter. First Sergeant J. Paulin, absolutely. He's one of the suspects. I'm going to tell you that right now. He's one of the suspects. The evil that came out of that man, the lack of integrity, the lack of leadership, the lack of honor, the lack of any kind of rightness. Because you know what he said? He said a lot of things, but one thing that just sticks in my brain, he said, "Is Richard's life worth more than mine?" He actually said that publicly, written publicly, as Richard's first sergeant. Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz. And First Sergeant Paulin, when he wrote that, he continued to make it clear that Richard's life was not worth more than his own. How many of our sons and daughters that volunteered in the military read that from a first sergeant? Yeah. And what that kind of said is Richard's dead. You know, he also said, you heard about, that's really what he was saying there. Richard's dead. To me anyway. He also said, "Oh, you heard about Vanessa Guillen. Well, I just want to assure you this is not that." Who would say something like that? Who would say something like that? Yeah. It just got worse and worse, and that's not all of it. It just got worse and worse. So yeah. What a dishonor of the uniform. And the thing is when he's wearing the uniform, people were showing him respect. See, that facade covered the wolf underneath. He's a wolf. He's a vile venom, you know? I'm sorry. It was so bad. He's just a demon. And the same with General McConville, who is going to be retiring soon. And they are going to spend so much of our taxpayers' money giving him a hoopla. And he's totally a criminal. Crimes against humanity. But don't forget, he's the one that I talked to on the phone. Um, but he's the one that put together this stage task force find Richard Halliday. What? I mean, he needs to be arrested. He needs to be arrested, y'all. Where are the arrests? So not only do we have a four-star general, and four-star General Garrett, who I don't even know what he got paid for. What a dishonor, disgrace to that beautiful uniform and the stars. And they are reading what First Sergeant Paulin is saying. We sent it in. They are reading what Captain Park is saying in his letter. We sent it in. They are absolutely aware of what is going on in El Paso with the emergency intake center, with the risk to all children, with the lack of, do not tell me they did not know, with the lack of accountability of our children there, the world's children, not even being accounted for, not even being followed, and then to find out that the workers weren't even vetted. What, how evil these people are, because they talk all pretty with their charm school training, and they do not care. They do not care about helpless children, minors, the future. The future. They don't care about the future. And they sure don't care about the crime. And they sure don't care about rape, because they made the barracks co-ed. So they don't care about rape, and they don't care about sexual assault, and they don't care about children. So that means that this CID report about a first lieutenant is incestual relationship with his brother is they don't care. They don't care about our military, about our children, about our system, about our country. They don't care that a soldier was reporting this and then gets illegally exposed and then gets violently murdered, and they are putting together a stage task force find Richard Halliday to cover it up. And then we get leaks of the autopsy reports. And they have one thing. They have the power to cover up a lot for a long time, but not everything forever. And that's why this is cracking. Absolutely. We have a new group that slowly, it's going to be slowly, it's called Mothers of Missing, Murdered, and Maligned Soldiers. When I started it, I just said Mothers of Murdered Soldiers, so you'll see that on there. But I was told, and family members and discussions We need to say mothers of missing, murdered, maligned soldiers, and we can put a cube on it. And my sister-in-law, she's very clever. So absolutely. And we need to stick together and be unified so that people can have a place to go to get some support and know they're not alone, and get ideas. Like one of the ideas that, or tips that I gave right away today was like the first things you should do if your loved one goes missing, is murdered, or is maligned. And the first thing you should do is pray. And the second thing you should do is control your emotions enough to devise a plan how you're going to record everything. You need to keep a journal. You need to take snapshots. You need to record wherever you're legally able to. And you need to be meticulous. That word, it's not coming out. But you need to be on it. Record, journal, everything. Take pictures, take snapshots, everything. And be on it. Because there's an SOP of the investigation is ongoing. The investigation is ongoing. Fort investigation is ongoing. The investigation is ongoing, and you're in cold case. Cold case investigation is ongoing. And I know some people that have gotten some closures. Because of, well, it's a parent suicide. It's a parent suicide. It's a parent suicide. Yeah. So you need to record, because you're not dealing with agencies that are just, that want to be speedy and just and get to the bottom of things. Get to the bottom of things quick, righteously, justly, and get closure. You're not dealing with that. That is very obvious. Because people don't want consequences. Yeah. And, when one day we're going to figure it out that consequences are a good thing, that consequences make us they're a brake to stop us from going to hell. That consequences definitely put on a brake to stop us from spiraling down into the abyss where there's wailing and gnashing of teeth. One day we're going to figure that out, and we're going to once again have just courts with consequences. And I'm hoping that I'm praying real hard that Richard's case will be a good start. A good start to that. Yeah. So I will take some questions now. I think wearing the uniform, the whole child care issue during that time. Oh yes, I have a letter put together for veterans because veterans don't want to be dishonored. They don't want their uniform to be dishonored. They don't want their military to be dishonored. And so I have here a letter, and it seems this is why we're doing moms, mothers of the missing, murdered, maligned soldiers, is so that we can have letters like this and that we can get people to send them out, sign them even, co-sign them, and send them out. And so here is some contact information of veterans groups that we would like for you to cut and paste or write your own letter. We have our letter right here, and send it to these groups so that the veterans will know about Richard's case. They will know about others' cases, and they will be another force with moms to drive our Department of Justice, drive our Department of Defense to do the right thing. To do the right thing. Of course, we have the media, 1,000 letters for 1,000 days to it's called EOClass at irs.gov. And what it does is El Paso Media Matters. We have a letter on Find Richard Halliday about that. To report them, really it is. It's a reporting them for being biased. And they get tax exempt status. And they're not the only media that does this. And that's why, we're taking these steps to show people that they do have a recourse. So in this case, for KTEP and El Paso Matters, they have a recourse to go to the IRS, EOClass at irs.gov, and report them and say, this news agency is biased. They're breaking the rules of their tax exempt status. And they should be reporting that this Hart family, nobody's been arrested, and looking into, were they government funded at-home daycare center, and then to know that in that home, a 7-year-old in their care in Leilani's bedroom, master bedroom, was being raped by multiple members of the family. Where is the media to look into that, to clear their name? Where is Leilani Hart calling me? She should call me. Where is her being arrested? Where is Dallas Hart being arrested? If she's right, because let me tell you, there is a huge gap between Dallas Hart and his mother. He told me that on the phone. There is some hard feelings there. So, why? And why isn't there any arrests? And why isn't there media? This is in El Paso. This is a child care issue. That's what it looks like. And El Paso Matters has reported on this child care issue many times. So this would be a very good story. And it's, think about this. This is all behind the facade of the American military uniform. Oh, they're veterans, so you can trust them. They're in uniform. They're in law enforcement, so you can trust them. Oh, it's the emergency intake center, so you can trust them. It's government. We'll take care of you. And you have this kind of illegal activity going on. And where are the arrests and where are the news reporters looking into this? Because it wasn't too long ago that Leilani Hart was like the face of the veterans group in this political attack dog article that was out that we said interfered with fine Richard Halliday. And it's like, what are they doing? They're very political. And why should they have a tax exempt status if they're very political and they have their own agenda and they're political attack dogs? Why should they have that? So these are all hard hitting things that all are related to Richard's case, because why aren't they reporting Richard's case? It's a huge story. And it's right there in El Paso. And so these are all things that the DA, Bill Hicks, has with his lack, he's too busy doing Goldilocks mock trials than to worry about a active duty soldier whistleblower that was whistleblowing to Child Protective Services and to the CID of illegal activity within the unit, and is maligned, is retaliated continuously and severely, and then ends up brutally murdered. And Jack the Ripper comes in and cuts him up in pieces, divides him up. And Bill Hicks is nowhere to help us out, to even give us protection for calling out what we're finding out. Where are the Attorney USAs? Where is a violent crime? This is a violent crime, and those Jack the Rippers are walking the streets of El Paso and Fort Bliss. So where is Gregory McDonald? Where is Jaime Esparza? And by the way, is Jaime Esparza the AUSA that was helping the military out to get all these subpoenas and warrants? We want to know. We want to know who is doing what in this case, because we're the parents of Richard, and by knowing we can, we have this hope, you see. We have this hope that we can get Richard's remains back and that we can bury him. And I haven't said this, but my dad is buried at Anderson, at the Veterans Cemetery in Anderson. And my dad and Richard, Richard is named after my dad, Richard. So please God that we can get his remains back and we can bury them together. We can put Richard there with my dad. Yeah. I don't want Richard to be his body parts in some morgue right now, in some secret room down below in their tunnels or whatever. I don't know where they're hiding his remains, but they're playing hide and seek on his remains. Absolutely. And it is so cold-blooded. And it's not protecting the brand. It's protecting the wolf that is under the sheepskin, right? That's what it's doing. And it's really dishonoring our uniforms and our stars and our military. And that's why we're reaching out to the veterans now for help. For help. Because let me tell you, if this is my thinking, if they don't have any consequences for dishonoring the military and the uniform and the service of our volunteer service members, then they've dishonored what my husband has achieved. They've dishonored every veteran. And they've dishonored our country internationally. Because this thing spreads. This thing spreads. You know, they can click heels together for COVID, but this is so much more damaging. This pollution of criminal activity and dishonoring our country is so damaging. It's so deadly. And Richard knows that, right? And I'm German, so I absolutely know that because of the Dritte Reich. You know, my grandfather, he couldn't get a job unless he joined the party. And so he got on a boat and he came to the United States. And he came right through New York and Ellis Island. He went through Ellis Island. He was an immigrant. And he was a plumber, but, you know, he took any job he could, and he made furniture there in Oregon and in Portland, Oregon. And yeah, he got out of there. Now, my mother's father wasn't so fortunate. He was a cook, and, you know, when Hitler was just, you know, the pollution had gotten so bad, the evil has gotten so bad. And the German people were suffering so much. And nobody really talks about that, but they were suffering so much underneath that regime, underneath that evil. Dishonoring Germany for, you know, forever. Germany still doesn't really have a military. And my grandfather was sent, you know, with so many boys to the Russian front at the end of the war. He just took anybody and sent them to the Russian front. And that's where my grandfather died. My mother was just weeks old. So when you come from a family that has suffered under this kind of evil military power, you just do not bow to it, okay? You just do not give up. Because you know where it's going to end up. You know so many people are going to get hurt. So many people are going to lose their lives. So we want Richard's remains. We want consequences we want those Jack the Rippers arrested. We want the consequences, of course, for the health of our country. Not for vengeance, but for the health of our country, the health of our community, for the health of Fort Bliss, our military, for the health of El Paso, for the health of Mexico, because whatever happens in El Paso, it always affects Mexico. It always affects Juarez. And so we don't want Jack the Rippers walking around. And we don't want this child care issue to get so out of hand that, you know, why? I don't understand why some of the Harts are not arrested. Why we haven't heard anything. As soon as James Hart said to me, oh yeah, the CID called and cleared me, why wasn't Leilani Hart arrested? I don't understand that. Because was James Hart cleared, but Dallas Hart wasn't? Did they look the other way? Did they make some kind of deal? Or was he cleared? What's going on? We're talking about children in a home that, clearly had a child care registration. And we don't have El Paso Matters caring about this. They have Leilani Hart's number. They already covered her. Why don't they call her and ask her, hey, your CID FBI complaint, you mean members of your household were raping a 7-year-old? Is that true? How did you get off on that? You reporting it, you're notarizing it. The notary says he had it in his hand. And don't forget, why is that connected with Richard? Because Richard made the CPS complaints. He made the CID complaints. And the Tavita Nusa leak to Leilani Hart and talking to James Hart, those files were being used to fortify her complaint. She was collecting information to make that CID complaint really serious, that it would go to the FBI, and it worked because we have both the CID and the FBI numbers. And where are the veterans? The veteran groups should be, covering this too. And that's why we have the campaign to send letters to the veterans groups. And you can, I'm sure people know their veterans group. These are some of the most prominent ones. And then we have a letter here, and I think it needs to be all sent to the veterans to let them know. The last thing that I want to talk to you about, I just love this picture of him. I just love it. I just know that face so well. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is this weaponization that's going on, and I think I'm just going to turn it way down and just show you the pictures while I'm talking about it. But this is a new weapon that, it's kind of folded up, and it looks like, like the Patriot missiles. They have this kind of launching where you can mobile. It's on a big truck, and you can take it to wherever you want to launch these drones. These are drones, and as they come out, their wings fold out, pivot, and they become a drone. But they are they wait, right? They tally up there. They search. They can stay up there and wait. You can forget about them a little bit. I don't know how long they can last up there until they find a target, and then they'll just slam right into them. Fire and forget, right? The fire and forget. Which is, so there. This whole little video was about, and I can show you that beginning is really amazing. This weapon here. And why did I want to show this? Because the military uniform has to be honored, because those that are wearing the uniform, those that are in authority, they have these kind of weapons, y'all. And if we don't care about the character of those that are wearing our beautiful uniforms with stars and stripes, we're in trouble, because they can have these drones that tally up in the sky. And I'm not one to be afraid of nuclear weapons and all of that. But, this drone warfare thing is absolutely in the hands of people wearing uniforms. So I hope that makes sense. And so they need to be vetted, 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 and we only need to have a few good men and women. Okay? They need to be the highest caliber. The highest caliber. We don't need rapists in uniform. We don't need incestuous relationships in uniform. We don't need child porn producers in uniform. We don't need Jack the Rippers in uniform. We need only the highest caliber people with just unbelievable moral fortitude and commitment to the Constitution, to our country, and to our people, and especially to our future, our children. And so if they're leading emergency intake centers, they need to make sure everyone's vetted too, right? If they are a captain, if they are a lieutenant colonel like Lieutenant Colonel Roddick, who I don't know what part he played, but he played a big part because he totally dishonored his uniform with that Phil Grade Article 15. After Richard was already in chaptering starting in April. And somehow somebody in a high striped or high star uniform or, oak leaf or whatever, high ranking, extended Richard's chaptering to smoke him good, and to escalate the hate so much that Jack the Ripper murdered Richard. And, yeah, I'll take questions now. It's just, it makes you absolutely speechless. Thank you, everyone, for coming on. Thank you. Thank you, Danielle. It was freezing. This site is censoring, so sometimes it freezes, I believe. I'm sorry. 20,000. Now it's up to, I think it's like 80,000. 80,000 children unaccounted for at the emergency intake center. And then they admitted that they were not vetting the workers. Okay? So they were not vetting the workers. And I don't think they were vetting the in-home child care centers like they were supposed to. The licensing just going out, no one checking, no one caring, because there was such a desperate need for child care. But I don't think that's an excuse at all, because look, a 7-year-old that was reported in Leilani Hart's CID and FBI report was continuously raped. Or was the license pulled? Yeah, that's a good question. Absolutely. That's such a good question, Danielle. And that's why, where is the media to ask these questions, to put the fire underneath the AUSAs? Where's the AUSAs? Where is the El Paso police? Where is the law enforcement for this? Why aren't there arrests for this? Because I really believe when we get to the bottom of all of this, it's going to be very clear where Richard is. We'll be able to find him, and and it's I have this nightmare that it's our government that's hiding his remains, and who knows what they did, if they incinerated him, um, what they did. It's a nightmare, y'all. But absolutely, um, I'm 100% convinced that he was murdered. And it took me a long time. I have 1,000 days of proof. 1,000 days. You don't get the responses and this kind of behavior of a soldier that just decided, I'm going to walk away. Okay? This kind of leak, this kind of absolute evil information, and oh my gosh, and the bullying and the vile and vulgar and the screenshots and everything that we have. So it's a nightmare. It really is. Anicia, thank you so much. I missed. My phone is, or the live is freezing. Yeah, it was freezing, but I think it's better now. I don't know why. It's because my YouTube, they censored my YouTube, and I'm going to try to get that going. But anyway, my mom came home today, and that's a good news, and we just day by day, inch by inch, crumb by crumb. That's how, we just can't give up and get too anxious. And today was a good day because we're not alone, and we were contacted by Quantico, and they are moving forward, and they're going to go to El Paso, and that's a very good thing. A very good thing. So we'll see. Do we trust them? No, we're not there yet. No, no. But we'll take any bit of help we can get. Any bit of help we can get because we've been so abandoned. So, yeah. So we'll take it. Okay. Thank you so much. And God bless all of you and have a great night. And I will be back